Now, Australia's image overseas, especially in India, has suffered somewhat from attacks on international students studying here. But just how much of our reputation do we actually deserve? Tomorrow, the ABC begins a new series which looks at Australia through the eyes of 4 tourists from India.
The series is called Dumb, Drunk and Racist. In a moment, we'll speak to the show's presenter, but first let's take a look at some of it.
I'll be introducing them to the good.
Delicious. It's beautiful.
The bad.
White pride, mother.
And the bogan of my own country. We'll discover through their eyes whether all these nasty stereotypes about Australians are true.
It's not every day you meet such a bunch of idiots.
Gentlemen, step right up. Abuse an Indian call centre worker.
And we might even learn a few things about ourselves.
Now, Hildebrand is a News Limited columnist and the host of Dumb, Drunk and Racist, and he joins us now from Sydney. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm very well. Why did you get involved in this sort of a project?
Largely gunpoint and partly for the money. Right. But also I wanted to have a look at racism in Australia. It's obviously, you know, often the thing that dare not speak its name until it sort of rears up in a really ugly way, like in Cronulla or you know, in some of the alleged, you know, racially related bashings that we had in Melbourne. And, you know, we know that there's other things going on. There's an undercurrent to it with the asylum seeker debate and things like that. So I wanted to sort of find out, you know, just sort of how intensive it was. But more importantly, after this article came out that started all a year ago, the Dumb, Drunk and Racist article that was written in a US magazine, I kind of wanted to defend the country's honour because I thought, well, we're not that bad, surely. You know, there might be a few bad eggs, but, you know, we're a pretty nice bunch of guys. So I wanted to sort of, you know, show the people who were most receptive to this idea, which is the Indians and call centre workers in particular. And so we brought them out here, took them all around the country to prove that we're actually not dumb, drunk and racist at all, and we were completely wrong. Turns out we are. So don't bother watching, it's all over.
Yeah, but at the same time you came across some really confronting examples of racism in your travels.
Yeah, we did. No, there was some really full-on stuff. And I thought it would be much more sort of mild. I thought, you know, I knew obviously there are people who think these things, you know, a lot of them, you know, send them to me, you know, on the internet anonymously. But I didn't think that people would be just sort of out there saying stuff like, you know, white pride, mother, bleep, or, you know, throwing Sieg Heil, you know, Hitler salutes in the street. But that is actually what we saw. And we saw it completely sort of unprovoked, completely, you know, without any pre-planning or without any intention of seeing it. So it's sort of through our whole sort of, you know, namby-pamby feel-good rainbow coalition mission, totally off course.
Yeah, but I mean, every country has a racist element. Did you just happen to stumble across the hopefully very small minority of people expressing those sort of virulent views?
Yeah, look, we might have just been very lucky in having to come across, you know, every racist in the country just in one place. I think, I think, yeah, certainly every country does, but I think it takes on a different form, perhaps in Australia. I think in Australia, the weird thing, and I'm still trying to get my head around it, and hopefully when people see the series, they'll, you know, understand why it's so difficult to do. But in Australia, I think it's something to do with the fact that it's sort of married to our larrikinism and our, you know, our desire to, you know, to take the piss out of everything we see all the time, which is often a fantastic attribute and something I love doing and love about Australia. It's my favourite thing about Australia, that we skewer icons and holy cows, and that we, you know, that we try to laugh at everything at first glance. But it seems to then sometimes transfer into people just having a go at people for being from somewhere else or having a different coloured skin or whatever, just because people think it's funny. And that was the thing that seemed to affect the Indian travellers we brought over here the most as well. So, you know, one of them said, yeah, sure, we have racial riots in India, we have religious violence, you know, we have people being killed, you know, you can have mass riots that result in thousands dying, but we don't enjoy it, we don't laugh about it. You don't see people having fun like they did, for example, at Cronulla, where, you know, you have people smashing bottles into other people's heads, or, you know, bashing them and laughing about it and thinking it was one big party. Yeah, and
just following up on that, do you think the racism, if not too open, is it much more latent in some parts of Australia? You know, you just scratch the surface and you'll find people with views like that.
Yeah, look, I think there are sort of people who think that, and I don't necessarily think they're bad people or anything like that. I think they're often people who are just insulated from from other cultures who, who see, bad representations, in the media, because it's always the media's fault, or just from what they hear other people say, what they get from their parents, whatever. So I think certainly that's there, and I think if this show does anything good, which hopefully it will, it's sort of showing what happens when that sentiment manifests itself. So you can quietly think these things. I mean, I think everyone's mum and dad probably has quietly said, something, the Chinese are buying up a lot of property around here, or, that's just the way they drive, or, that's the way, everyone's sort of said things on the quiet. And then when you see it sort of articulated and spoken out loud, and that sentiment come to its natural conclusion, it's actually shocking how really, really ugly it is. So maybe people will see that and start to sort of think, maybe I should be a little bit easier on them.
Oh, well, you may achieve something there for tomorrow night. Joe Hildebrand, we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.